The alarm bells rang through Harmony Prime like screaming children. Ambassador Kylth pressed his crystal hands against the cold metal wall and felt the space station shake. His people, the Vethri, had never known fear like this. For 10,000 years, they had lived in peace among the stars. Now death was coming for them all. "How many ships have we lost?" Kylth asked the floating gas cloud that was Ambassador Mulvan of the Moldani people. 37 fleets. Mulvan's voice whispered through the air like wind through leaves. "The Ravagers destroyed them all. Our weapons cannot stop them." Kylth looked through the large window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the enemy was coming. The Ravagers ate everything in their path. Planets, ships, people. Nothing was left behind when they passed through a system. "We need help," said Ambassador Zephyra, her plant-like body swaying as she spoke. "Our people were not made for war." The three ambassadors stood in silence. Around them, the Galactic Council building hummed with desperate activity. Beings from 50 different worlds worked day and night to find a solution, but they all knew the truth. They were prey animals trying to fight predators. It would not end well. "There are rumors," Kylth said slowly. "Stories from the edge worlds. They speak of a species from a death world, a planet so dangerous that everything there learns to fight or dies." "Earth," Mulvan whispered. "The humans." Zephyra's leaves rustled with worry. "Are we so desperate that we would call upon killers for help?" "Yes," Kylth said. "We are exactly that desperate." Far from Harmony Prime, Commander Lisa Grant sat in the captain's chair of the UES Phoenix. Her ship was on patrol near the outer colonies, watching for pirates and smugglers. It was boring work, but Lisa knew that boring was good. Boring meant people were safe. "Commander," called Lieutenant Bob Harris from the communications station, "we're getting a strange signal. It's not coming from any human world." Lisa turned in her chair. "Put it on screen." The main display showed a figure that looked like it was made of living crystal. The being's face was hard to read, but Lisa could hear panic in its voice. "My name is Ambassador Kylth of the Vethri people. I speak for the Galactic Council of Peaceful Species. We are under attack. Our worlds are being destroyed. We have heard stories of your kind. Please, we need your help." The message repeated 3 times, then ended. Lisa stared at the screen for a long moment. First contact with aliens, and they were asking for help in a war. "Set course for Earth," she ordered, "and send this message to Fleet Command, Priority 1. 3 days later, Lisa stood in the war room at Earth Command. The walls were covered with star maps and tactical displays. Admiral Jake Morrison, a man with gray hair and hard eyes, studied the alien message for the 5th time. "So let me get this straight," Jake said. "Aliens exist. They've been watching us, and now they want our help to fight something called the Ravagers." "That's right, sir," Lisa replied. "Our long-range sensors confirm massive destruction in several star systems. Whatever these Ravagers are, they're real. And they're heading this way," added Captain Ben Taylor, a young officer with sharp features and quick eyes. "If they destroy the alien worlds, Earth could be next." Jake nodded slowly. "What do we know about these peaceful species?" Dr. Kate Williams, the base's head scientist, stepped forward. "From what we can tell, they evolved on worlds with no major predators, no wars, no violence. They've never had to fight for survival like we have." "So they're asking the wolves to help fight the bears," Jake said with a grim smile. "Something like that, sir." Jake looked around the room at his officers. These were people who had grown up on a world where storms could kill, where earthquakes destroyed cities, where animals hunted humans for food. Earth had made them strong. "Captain Taylor," Jake said, "pick your best people. Marines, pilots, engineers. We're going to show these aliens what humans can do." Ben saluted. "Yes, sir. What about Colonel Amy Rodriguez? Her Marines are the best we have. Bring her too. And pack everything we've got. Nuclear weapons, kinetic rounds, plasma cannons. If these Ravagers are as tough as they sound, we'll need all the firepower we can carry." 2 weeks later, the human fleet hung in space near Earth's moon. 5 ships in total led by Captain Taylor's vessel, the UCS Defiant. It was not a large force, but it was ready for war. Colonel Amy Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Defiant and watched Earth grow smaller, through the window. She was a small woman with dark hair and fierce eyes. Her Marines trusted her because she had never let them down. "You nervous, Colonel?" Ben asked. Amy smiled. "Always am before a fight. Keeps me sharp." "Any idea what we're walking into?" "Nope. But that's never stopped us before." Ben nodded and turned to his crew. "All ships prepare for jump. We have aliens to save and monsters to kill." The human fleet activated their jump drives and vanished into hyperspace. Behind them, Earth continued to spin in the darkness, unaware that its children were heading to their first war among the stars. On Harmony Prime, Kylth watched his people flee in terror as Ravager scout ships appeared at the edge of the system. The enemy vessels looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. They moved wrong, as if they existed in more dimensions than just 3. "The humans," Mulvan whispered beside him. "Will they come?" "They have to," Kylth replied, though doubt filled his crystal heart. "They're our only hope." In space, the Ravager ships began their approach. They had come to feed, and nothing would stop them. Nothing except, perhaps, the children of a world that had taught them how to be wolves. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace to find hell waiting for them. Harmony Prime burned in the distance while 3 massive Ravager ships circled it like sharks. The alien space station fired weak energy beams that bounced off the enemy, hulls like raindrops. "Jesus Christ," whispered Lieutenant Sam Parker from his fighter cockpit. "Those things are huge." Captain Ben Taylor stood on the bridge of the UCS Defiant and watched the attack through his ship's cameras. The Ravager vessels looked like someone had crossed a spider with a battleship. Metal and flesh mixed together in ways that made his eyes hurt to look at. "All ships battle stations," Ben ordered. "Lock missiles on the nearest target." "Sir," called his weapons officer. "The aliens are trying to contact us." Ben nodded. "Put them through." Ambassador Kylth appeared on the screen. His crystal face was cracked with stress. "Human ships, please be careful. Our people are still on the station." "We'll get them out," Ben said. "But first we need to deal with your visitors." "All ships, fire." 20 nuclear missiles streaked toward the closest Ravager ship. The aliens watched in horror as the weapons hit the enemy hull and exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The Ravager ship shook but kept moving. "Direct hit," reported the weapons officer. "Hull damage, but it's still active." "Then we hit it. Again," Ben said. And again after that. Colonel Amy Rodriguez was already suiting up in the Marine Bay. Her soldiers worked around her, checking weapons and armor. These were men and women who had trained for war their entire lives. "Listen up," Amy called to her troops. "We're going to board that damaged ship and see what makes these things tick. Stay together, watch your corners, and remember what we learned about fighting in zero gravity." Sergeant Carlos Mendez, a big man with gentle eyes and deadly hands, raised his rifle. "What about prisoners, Colonel?" "Take them if you can. Kill them if you can't. Our job is to learn how to stop these things before they eat the galaxy." The Marine shuttles launched from the Defiant while Sam Parker led his fighter squadron in attack runs on the Ravager ships. The enemy vessels tried to shoot back, but their weapons were designed for fighting the aliens' energy shields. Human ships moved too fast and hit too hard. "This is Falcon 1, Sam reported over the radio. "Their weapons can't track us. It's like they've never fought anything that moves this quick." "Copy that, Falcon 1, Ben replied. "Keep them busy, while the Marines do their work." Amy's shuttle punched through the damaged hull of the Ravager ship and landed in what looked like a stomach made of metal. The walls pulsed like they were alive. Red lights blinked in patterns that hurt to watch. "Masks on," Amy ordered. "The air in here could be poison." Her Marines moved through corridors that seemed to grow and change as they walked. Everything was wrong here. The floor felt soft under their boots. The walls breathed. "Contact front," called Sergeant Mendez. 3 creatures came around the corner. They had once been aliens, but now they were something else. Metal tubes grew from their backs. Their eyes glowed red. They moved like robots but bled like animals. Amy's Marines opened fire. The creatures absorbed the first shots, their flesh healing around the wounds. But bullets kept coming, and eventually even the Ravagers fell. "These things adapt to our weapons," Amy said into her radio. "But not fast enough." Dr. Kate Williams worked in the science lab aboard the Defiant while the battle raged outside. She studied samples of Ravager tissue that the Marines had brought back. What she found made her stomach turn. "Captain Taylor," she called over the ship's communication system, "you need to see this." Ben arrived in the lab 10 minutes later. Kate showed him images on her computer screen. "The Ravagers aren't just machines," she explained. "They're not just animals either. They're both. Someone took living beings and turned them into weapons." "Who would do something like that?" Ben asked. "I don't know. But there's more. They're connected somehow. All of them share the same thoughts. It's like a hive mind, but built with technology we don't understand." On the bridge, the communications officer picked up a new signal. This one came from deeper in space. "Captain, we're getting a message from the main Ravager fleet. It's coming. Through their hive network." The main screen showed a creature that might have once been beautiful. Now it was a nightmare of metal and flesh fused together. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding gears. "Humans," it said, "you fight well, but you cannot stop us. We are many. We are endless. We will consume your worlds as we have consumed so many others." Ben stepped forward. "Who are you? What do you want?" "We are the Ravagers. We want everything. Every world, every life, every star. All will feed us in the end." The transmission ended. Ben turned to his crew. They looked scared, but they were still ready to fight. "Sir," called the sensor officer, "long-range scanners show the main fleet. 200 ships heading this way." Amy's voice came over the radio from the Ravager ship. "Captain, we found something. These things have a weak spot. There's some kind of control center deep in each ship. If we can reach it and plant charges, we might be able to kill the whole vessel." "What's the catch?" Ben asked. "The catch is that someone has to stay behind to set off the bombs. It's a one-way trip." Ben closed his eyes for a moment. War always came down to this. Someone had to pay the price. "Understood, Colonel. Get back to the ship. We need to plan our next move." Ambassador Kyleth watched the human ships with growing amazement. These beings fought like nothing he had ever seen. They moved fast, hit hard, and never seemed to fear death. "They're not like us," he said to Mulvan. "No," the gas being replied. "They're exactly what we need." The planet Kithara was dying. From space, Captain Ben Taylor could see half of its surface covered in black metal growth. The Ravagers had been feeding here for weeks, turning a living world into part of their fleet. "My God," whispered Dr. Kate Williams as she stared at the screens. "They're not just destroying it, they're eating it." The main Ravager fleet hung around the planet like a disease. 200 ships of different sizes, all pulsing with organic life mixed with cold metal. Some were as big as cities. Others moved like living creatures through space. "Admiral Morrison should be here soon," Ben said to his crew. "Until then, we hit and run. Make them angry, but don't let them catch us." Lieutenant Sam Parker was already, in his fighter, leading 12 other pilots toward the enemy. The Ravager ship sensed them coming and turned their weapons toward the small human craft. "Remember what we learned," Sam called over the radio. "They can't track fast targets. Stay moving and hit the weak spots Colonel Rodriguez found." The fighters dove between the massive enemy ships, firing missiles at the organic parts that seemed to control each vessel. The Ravagers fired back, but their weapons moved too slowly. Human pilots had learned to fly in Earth's dangerous skies. This was just another storm to survive. On the planet below, Sergeant Carlos Mendez led a team of Marines through the ruins of an alien city. The buildings were half-eaten, covered in the same black metal growth that was consuming the world. "This is horrible," said Private Danny Lee, a young soldier on his first mission off Earth. "How could anyone do this?" "They're not anyone," Carlos replied, checking his rifle. "They're monsters, and we're here to kill monsters." The Marines found survivors hiding in underground bunkers. Alien families huddled together in the dark, too scared to speak. Carlos's team helped them to the surface where human shuttles waited to take them to safety. You're safe now, Carlos told a young alien child whose skin looked like tree bark. The humans are here. The child looked up at him with large eyes. Are you the warriors from the Death World? Yes, Carlos said. And we're here to help. In space, Admiral Jake Morrison arrived with 20 more human ships. The fleet was small compared to the Ravagers, but it carried weapons that the peaceful aliens had never imagined. Captain Taylor, Jake's voice came over the radio. What's the situation? Bad, sir. They're bigger than we thought and tougher than we hoped, but we've learned how to hurt them. Then let's hurt them a lot. The UCS Warhammer, Admiral Morrison's flagship, moved into position. Captain Nick Davis commanded the ship with cold efficiency. His vessel carried humanity's newest weapons built from studying the Ravager technology. Antimatter torpedoes ready, reported his weapons officer. Fire, Nick ordered. The torpedoes hit the largest Ravager ship and tore holes in its hull big, enough to fly shuttles through. The enemy vessel screamed, a sound that somehow traveled through the vacuum of space. Other Ravager ships moved to protect their wounded sister. Colonel Amy Rodriguez watched the battle from the Marine Bay of the Defiant. Her soldiers were preparing for another boarding mission, but this time the target was the enemy flagship. The aliens gave us something called a harmonic disruptor, she explained to her troops. It's supposed to shut down their hive mind, but someone has to carry it to the center of their biggest ship and turn it on manually. What happens to whoever does that? Asked Sergeant Mendez. They don't come back, Amy said simply. The radiation will kill them in minutes. The Marines looked at each other. These were people who had volunteered to fight in space, far from home for aliens they had just met. They were not afraid of death. I'll do it, said Private Lee. No, Amy replied. I'm going. It's my job to lead. With respect, Colonel, Captain Taylor's voice came over the intercom. It's my job. I'm the ranking officer. The argument was cut short when Lieutenant Emma Foster, the ship's communications expert, called from her station. Captain, I'm picking up something strange from the Ravager network. They're not just talking to each other, they're talking to something else. What kind of something else? Ben asked. I don't know. But whatever it is, the Ravagers are scared of it. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships darted between the giant Ravagers like wolves attacking elephants. They could not match the enemy's size or numbers, but they were faster and smarter. Gradually, the tide turned. Sam Parker's fighters destroyed the weapon systems on 3 large ships. Nick Davis's antimatter weapons cracked open 2 more. Carlos Mendez's Marines planted charges in the weak spots Amy had found, causing internal explosions that killed entire vessels. But the enemy adapted. The surviving Ravager ships began working together, covering each other's weak spots. Their weapons started tracking human fighters more accurately. We're losing pilots, Sam reported. They're learning our tactics. Then we changed tactics, Ben replied. All ships form up for final assault on the flagship. The human fleet gathered around the UCS Defiant as it approached the massive Ravager command ship. The enemy vessel was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and organic armor that pulsed with alien life. Amy and her Marines launched in armored shuttles while the fleet provided covering fire. The shuttles punched through the flagship's hull and landed in corridors that seemed designed by nightmares. Move fast, Amy ordered as her troops advanced. We don't have much time. They fought through rooms filled with creatures that had once been aliens from a dozen different worlds. All of them had been changed by the Ravagers, turned into parts of the ship's living systems. Ben carried the harmonic disruptor himself, a device the size of a briefcase that hummed with dangerous energy. The radiation counter on his suit began, clicking faster as they approached the ship's center. Finally, they reached the command room. It was a vast chamber filled with organic computers and screens showing star maps of the galaxy. At the center sat something that might have once been a queen. The Ravager queen was beautiful and terrible. Her body was mostly machine now, but her face still held traces of whatever species she had once been. When she spoke, her voice was sad and angry at the same time. You are too late, humans, she said. We are not the enemy you should fear. Something worse comes behind us, something that will destroy everything. Ben stepped forward with the disruptor. Then why don't you stop running and help us fight it? The Queen's eyes flickered. For a moment, she looked almost human. Because we tried that once, and it turned us into this. Ben activated the device. Light filled the chamber as the harmonic disruptor sent its signal through the Ravager network. One by one, the enemy ships went dark and silent. The Battle of Cathara was over. But as the human fleet regrouped, their sensors detected something new approaching from deep space. Something that made the Ravagers look small. Dr. Kate Williams had not slept in 3 days. She sat in her lab aboard the UCS Defiant, surrounded by pieces of dead Ravager ships. The samples told a story that made her hands shake as she typed her report. Captain Taylor, she called over, the ship's communication system. You need to see this. All of you need to see this. Ben arrived with Admiral Morrison and Colonel Rodriguez. They found Kate staring at images on her computer screen that looked like nightmares made real. The Ravagers weren't always monsters, Kate began. They were called the Keth Mori. They were explorers, scientists, artists. Look at this. The screen showed what the Ravagers had looked like before. They were beautiful beings with silver skin and large eyes full of wisdom. Their cities had been works of art that floated among the stars. What happened to them? Ben asked. They met something, Kate replied. Something from outside our reality. The computer files I recovered call them the Void Touched. They exist to destroy everything. Not just planets or people, but the very idea of existence itself. Admiral Morrison stepped closer to the screen. You're saying there are things out there that want to unmake reality? Yes. And they're coming here. The Ravagers were their scouts, sent ahead to weaken our defenses. But something went wrong. The Keth Mori fought back when they were being changed. Part of them stayed conscious even after they became monsters. Colonel Amy looked at the images of the former Keth Mori. That's why the Queen looked sad. She remembered who she used to be. Kate nodded. The Void Touch don't just kill you. They erase you from existence completely. Like you never were at all. The Keth Mori were lucky. They only got turned into weapons. Ben felt cold despite the warm air in the lab. How do we fight something like that? I don't know, Kate admitted, but we better figure it out fast. Long-range sensors show massive distortions approaching from deep space. Reality itself is bending around whatever is coming. On Harmony Prime, Ambassador Kilth met with the other alien leaders. The crystal being looked older than his 1,000 years. His people had lived through the worst crisis in galactic history, and now they learned it was just the beginning. The humans want to know about our first contact with the Void Touched, he said to the assembled council. They think we're hiding something. Ambassador Mulvan's gaseous form shifted with shame. Because we are hiding something. We met these entities 3,000 years ago. They destroyed 12 of our worlds before we learned to run. And we've been running ever since, added Ambassador Zafara. Her plant-like body drooped with guilt. We abandoned entire sectors to save ourselves. Billions died because we were too afraid to fight. The humans are not like us, Kylth said. They do not run from impossible fights. They run toward them. Meanwhile, Captain Ben was in the war room with his senior officers. Star charts covered the walls, showing the approach of something that their instruments could barely detect. The Void Touched will reach the outer colonies in 2 weeks, reported Lieutenant Emma Foster. After that, Earth has maybe a month. Can we evacuate? Asked Sam Parker. Where would we go? Ben replied. Kate says these things want to destroy everything. There's nowhere to run. Sergeant Carlos Mendez raised his hand. Then we don't run, we fight. With what? Our weapons barely hurt the Ravagers, and they were just the advanced scouts. Dr. Williams entered the room carrying a data pad. I might have an idea. The Void Touched exist in multiple dimensions at once. That's what makes them so powerful. But it might also be their weakness. She activated a holographic display showing complex equations. If we could create interference in the quantum field that connects dimensions, we might be able to hurt them, maybe even stop them. How? Admiral Morrison asked. The galaxy's network of jump gates. If we overload them all at once, the resulting quantum explosion might create a barrier they can't cross. Ben studied the display. What would that do to galactic travel? It would cut off entire sectors from each other. Some regions might be isolated forever. It would be the end of the galactic community as we know it. The room fell silent. They were talking about destroying the very thing they were trying to save. Commander Lisa Grant spoke from her ship near the outer rim. Her voice came through the communication system with static from the approaching distortions. Captain, we're seeing the effects here. Stars are just disappearing. Not exploding, not dying. Just gone, like they never existed. Space itself is coming apart. On the main screen they watched as reality twisted around the approaching void-touched fleet. Their ships didn't exist in normal space. They were holes in the universe shaped like vessels. How long do we have? Ben asked. The lead ships will reach inhabited space in 10 days, Emma reported. The main force arrives 3 days after that. Kyle's image appeared on the communication screen. The alien ambassador looked directly at Ben. Captain Taylor, there is something else you must know. The reason we called for you specifically. What do you mean? We have been watching Earth for 50 years. We saw your wars, your struggles, your refusal to give up even when facing certain death. We have never seen anything like it. So? The void touched feed on despair. They grow stronger when their enemies lose hope. But you humans, you hope even when you should not. You fight even when you cannot win. That is why we called you. Ben looked around at his officers. These were people who had grown up on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had learned to be stubborn in the face of impossible odds. You think our attitude can hurt them? We think it is the only thing that can. The Kethmori were brave, but they accepted defeat when it became logical. You humans are not logical. You are something else entirely. Admiral Morrison stepped forward. Then we give them something they've never faced before, not just human weapons, but human will. The meeting was interrupted by alarms throughout the ship. The sensor officer's voice echoed through the halls. Contact on long-range sensors, multiple contacts, they're here. On the main screen, space itself began to tear apart as the first void-touched ships entered reality. They were not ships in any normal sense. They were tiers in existence itself, moving with purpose toward the living worlds. Ben looked at his crew. All ships, prepare for battle. Send word to Earth Command. Tell them the real war is about to begin. In the distance, stars went out one by one as something ancient and hungry began to feed on reality itself. The void-touched ships moved through space like cracks in a broken mirror. Reality bent around them. Stars disappeared and space itself screamed. Captain Ben Taylor watched from the bridge of the UCS Defiant as his worst nightmares came to life. There, in 17 dimensions at once, reported Dr. Kate Williams from her station. Our weapons can't even touch them. Then we make new weapons, Ben said. How long until you can modify our quantum resonance systems? 6 hours, maybe 8. But Captain, even if this works, we'll need to get close to them. Really close. Admiral Jake Morrison's voice came over the radio from the UCS Warhammer. All ships begin quantum modifications. We're going to ram these things down their throats. On New Geneva, humanity's largest colony world, Colonel Amy Rodriguez prepared for ground combat against an enemy that existed in multiple realities. Her Marines checked weapons that might not even work against beings made of living emptiness. Listen up, Amy called to her troops. These things feed on fear and despair, so don't give them any. Stay angry, stay stubborn, and keep fighting no matter what you see. Sergeant Carlos Mendez loaded his rifle with rounds designed by Kate Williams. What if the bullets don't work, Colonel? Then we punch them with our fists. If that doesn't work, we bite them. Humans don't quit, Marines. That's what makes us human. The first void-touched entity materialized above New Geneva like a storm made of darkness. It reached down toward the planet with tentacles of pure nothing. Where they touched, buildings simply stopped existing. Amy's Marines opened fire. Most bullets passed right through the creature, but some of the new quantum rounds found their mark. The entity shrieked in a voice that hurt to hear and pulled back slightly. It worked. Amy radioed to the fleet. We can hurt them. Not much, but we can hurt them. In space, Lieutenant Sam Parker led his fighter squadron against impossible odds. The void-touched ships were everywhere, tearing holes in reality as they moved. His pilots flew through spaces that shouldn't exist, fighting enemies that were barely there. "This is crazy," called his wingman over the radio. "How do you shoot something that isn't really there?" "You don't think about it," Sam replied, firing missiles at a patch of twisted space. "You just do it anyway." The missiles hit something and exploded in colors that had no names. A void-touched ship flickered and became slightly more solid. Sam's squadron immediately focused their fire on it. Captain Nick Davis of the UCS Warhammer pushed his ship deeper into the enemy formation. His quantum weapons charged slowly, building up energy that made the air taste like metal. "Sir," called his weapons officer, "the quantum resonance cannon is ready, but if we fire it this close to ourselves, we'll probably die," Nick finished. "Fire it anyway." The cannon discharged a beam of pure mathematics into the heart of the largest void-touched ship. The enemy vessel convulsed and began to lose its grip on multiple dimensions. For a moment, it became solid enough to kill. Every human ship in range opened fire with everything they had. Nuclear missiles, kinetic rounds, plasma beams, and old-fashioned bullets all found their target. The void-touched ship died screaming. On the bridge of the Defiant, Lieutenant Emma Foster made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain, I'm reading something from their communication network. They're not just trying to destroy us, they're trying to make us give up hope." Ben looked at the tactical display. Human ships were scattered across 3 star systems, fighting creatures that shouldn't exist. Many were damaged, some were gone completely, but none of them had retreated. "Emma, patch me through to all human ships and colonies, all frequencies." "You're on, sir." Ben took a deep breath. "This is Captain Taylor to all human forces. I know, this looks bad. I know we're outnumbered and outgunned. I know some of you are scared." He paused, watching as another void-touched ship materialized near Earth itself. "But we're humans. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters that would have ended any other species. We didn't get this far by giving up when things looked impossible." On New Geneva, Amy's Marines cheered as they heard their captain's voice. They were losing ground to the void-touched, but they were not losing hope. "These things feed on despair," Ben continued. "So let's starve them. Let's show them what it means to fight beings who never learned how to quit." The effect was immediate. Across the battle zone, human forces fought with renewed energy. The void-touched ships flickered and became less solid as their food source of fear and hopelessness dried up. Dr. Williams made the final connection. "Captain, I understand now. The quantum field that connects dimensions is controlled by consciousness. The void-touched use despair to weaken reality, but we can use hope to strengthen it." "How?" "We think together. Every human, every alien who still has hope. We focus that hope into the quantum field and use it as a weapon." Ben opened communications to the alien ships. "Ambassador Kyleth, can your people link their minds with ours?" "We can try," the crystal being replied, "but humans think so differently from us. That's exactly what we need." Across the galaxy, millions of minds joined together. Humans thought of home and family and the future they were fighting for. Aliens thought of peace and beauty and the civilizations they had built among the stars. The combined will of countless beings focused on a single idea. Existence was worth fighting for. The quantum field around the void-touched ships began to change. Reality became solid and real in ways it had never been before. The enemy vessels found themselves trapped in normal space, solid and vulnerable. Ben smiled grimly. "All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship." The final battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the void-touched fleet was destroyed or fleeing back to whatever dark dimension had spawned them. Space began to heal itself, and the missing stars returned to their proper places. Ben stood on the observation deck of the Defiant. and watched Earth spin peacefully in the distance. Around him, the combined fleet of humans and aliens worked together to repair the damage and help the survivors. Ambassador Keelth appeared beside him, his crystal form reflecting the light of Earth's sun. "Your species has given us a great gift, Captain." "What's that?" "You have taught us that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to be willing to fight for it." Ben nodded. "And you taught us that we're not alone in the universe. I think that's a fair trade." In the months that followed, human and alien children played together on rebuilt worlds, while their parents worked side by side to guard the galaxy against future threats. When new dangers came from the dark spaces between stars, they were met not by desperate refugees, but by determined defenders who had learned that hope was the strongest weapon in the universe. The Deathworlders had answered. The call for heroes and the galaxy would never be the same.